Proverbs chapter 20, verse 29. Look at this one verse. The glory of young men is their strength, and the honor of old men is their gray hair. So, today is Father's Day. We think about men. And ladies, have you ever been mystified, or maybe mortified, by the male mind? Huh? Never? You got men all figured out, understand, or if it's like men are crazy. I cannot begin to understand that. So today, I want to help simplify the mystery. And this month of June is about restoring hope. I'd like to help restore some hope to you and understanding the male mind and having better relationships with men and boys. Maybe you're a parent and you've got boys and they're driving you nuts. And so if you have any kind of relationship with the male gender, I want to focus in today and help you understand that. And here is the one thing and the most important thing to understand about the male mind. It's this: it's all about respect. It's all about respect. Isn't that Aretha who said that? R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Well, I won't go into that, so I won't say it there. Okay. It's all about respect. Look at Proverbs 20 and verse 29. It addresses young men and old men. Notice the commonality here. The glory of young men is their strength. The honor of old men is the gray hair. Those two words there. Glory and honor. For the young guy, what is his glory? He's young. He's in the prime of life. It's his strength. It's his, physique. And, so many young guys, man, they're working on, building their muscles, building their physique, taking care of themselves, being athletic, getting in front of the mirror. See how I look there? And the old men, when we get past our prime, 25, they say, is the peak, and then it's all downhill from there. What is their glory? Well, he says the gray hair. What's that really about? It's about wisdom, accomplishments. That when I pass my physical peak as a man, I hope I will be honored for my wisdom, my life experience, my accomplishments. But what both of those have in mind is respect. Glory, honor. It's about respect. That's the common denominator in a man, whether he's young or whether he's old. It's all about respect, admiration, affirmation, approval. Notice a little boy when he's a little kid and he's out playing or on the swing set or hanging upside down from a tree. What does he say? Hey, Mom, look at me. Watch me. Look at me. He wants you to notice that. In college, the 300-pound lineman, when the camera pans on him at the college game, hey, Mom, look at me. Something in that man that wants that respect, that admiration, that approval from the women in his life. Now, this makes sense if you think about, and you'll not hear this very many places, but turn over to Ephesians 5. Look at what God teaches about the basic needs of the genders. Having a good marriage is not rocket science. It takes two people, though, to understand certain life realities. Now, if you throw God out the window, if you don't accept the reality of God, and if there is a God and we are designed by God, then you're really going to be at a disadvantage, because if you take God out and the design of God, then you're going to have a hard time accepting what is a job description of a man or a job description of a woman, husband and wife. So he makes it very simple here. Look in Ephesians chapter 5 and look in verse 25. So he says to husbands, okay, here's your job description. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Verse 28. So husbands ought also to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. So what he says here is, okay, husbands, here is the main need of your wife. The main need of your wife is she needs to be loved. So you love her the way Christ loved the church. How did he love the church? He gave himself for the church. He was selfless, self-sacrificing. And he says when you do this, he said when you love your wife as yourself, you're doing yourself a favor. It's going to come back to you. Now, we don't think that way. We tend to think opposite. We tend to think, why should I love you? I don't think I'm getting much from you. Why should I be the first one? Why should I forgive? Why should I do this? Why should I do that? Because you're not doing my... And he says, he addresses the men and he tells them, listen, do this, it'll come back to you. God knows what he's talking about. So what is the core need of a woman? Love. Pretty simple. Now, what that we'll got to figure out is, okay, so what makes the women in my life feel what? How do I show that? That's the core need. Now, notice here, to wives, he says in verse 22, wives, be subject to your own husband as to the Lord. Now, that is a little phrase and a couple words that usually makes the hair stand up on the back of the necks of most women. Because in some, let's see, wives, be subject to your own husband as to the Lord. And other translations sometimes have another word. Do you have another word in there?
Submit.
Oh, submit. Ooh, that's a nasty submit. Obey? Does somebody have obey in there? Okay. Wow, that really sounds kind of bad. Now, well, let's look over verse 33. In verse 33, the same chapter. Nevertheless, let each individual among you is to love his own wife, even himself. So guys, there's your role. And the wife must see to it that she respects her husband. Now, this idea of subject to, what do you want to call it? Subject to, submit, of course, has been misunderstood. It has been misapplied. It's not that, okay, women, you're my slave, and you have to do whatever I tell you to do. Good luck with that. You know, see if that'll work for you. And when you try to take the Bible and use it as a club to say to a woman, hey, listen, you're an unsubmissive woman, but you're not going to do everything I tell you to do, and when I tell you to do it, how I tell you to do it, and wonder why you have problems, you just say, my wife's just not submissive. Well, first of all, you got to understand, you can't command submissiveness. You can't command somebody to follow you. Why would she be willing to follow you? When you love her as Christ loved the church. But what is really at the heart of this? The heart is, he says, wives, this is what you need to do. What's really involved in this submitting to? It's about respect. Respect him as you would Christ. And so that's the core need of a guy. Respect. It's all about respect. What's the core need of a woman? Love. What's the core need of a man? Respect. So men, the challenge for you and I is to be worthy of respect. Now, how does the culture define respect or worthy of respect? That's important for you and I as men, because what happens a lot of times, what we do is we raised in a culture, and our culture dictates to us, what does it mean to be a man worthy of respect? And so a lot of things that come out of our culture is you have to be tough. You have to have physical strength. You don't show your emotions. Real men don't cry. You know, being kind of like the Lone Ranger, the independent guy, the John Wayne. And so that's the message we get. And we think that's what a man is. That's what it means to be a man worthy of respect. And so a guy, one of the worst things for him is disrespect. Don't you disrespect me. I mean, and so what happened with guys? When they want to fight, they want to blow somebody's head off. It's, about respect. Look over in the Orient. And respect is a big thing with the men over there. If they mess up and lose respect and lose face on the job or the military, what do? Kill themselves. Hey, that's pretty severe, isn't it? You take respect pretty serious if you feel you've lost respect and lost face, that I'm going to kill myself. But how does God define respect? God defines respect in the Scripture for a man is, first of all, a willingness to listen to God. If you and I want to be men worthy of respect, we first of all have to be willing to listen to God. So you listen to God. How do you listen to God? Well, what you're doing today, you come to church, you read the Bible, and yet what does our culture say? Our culture tells men church is for women. Church is for the weak. It's for women. It's sissified. It's feminized. And well, how are you going to listen to God if you're not going to get spiritual things? How do you listen to God if you don't open the Word and let God, speak to you? So God says, if you want to be a real man worthy of respect, first listen to me. Second thing he says is love your wife, love your children. Men, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And the very last book of the Old Testament, Malachi, says, here's the evidence of when Elijah comes, when revival breaks out, God will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. So many men feel that their role is provider, which, okay, that is one of the roles. So they see their role as bring home the paycheck, bringing home the bacon. And that's all I do. And yet, why did God make in a family, why was God's ideal man and woman, mom and dad, husband and wife? Because each have a role. So for a man, there's a lot more than just bringing home the paycheck. There's a lot more that the children need, that the kids need, the time, the energy, the influence. Now, what does that mean to love? Well, you can go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and read God's definition of love. So when God says, here's how to be a real man, love your wife, love your kids. Well, what does that look like? 1 Corinthians 13 has some powerful words to say, and 2 or 3 things really stuck out to me. I think they stuck out because it's a challenge that I have. One is patience. 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient. My wife was telling me today, that's not one of my strong points. I'm not a real, passive, laid-back guy. So we were walking in to the condo and stopped at our mailbox. And my wife says, I'll get the mail. So you have to take the key and put it in the mail. And she's not as fast with the key as I am. I mean, when it comes to the key, mail's out. Ready to go. So she's there, but she moves slower. Once she has chronic pain, and part of chronic pain is don't stress yourself out. Don't get in a rush. Don't have a lot of pressure. Be still. Helps you be less. I think I'm her chronic pain. And she described it all to me. So I didn't even realize this. She goes to put the key in the mailbox. She says, I'll get it. And she saw this little blink in my eye. She said, you know, when you blink like that, I know you're impatient. When you blink like that, I know you're saying, hurry up, get it. What's going to hurry up? And then I get all like, I said, what blink? What blink? I didn't know I blinked. I'm really working. I'm sitting there working on being patient. And, it's like I'm blinking her to death. Hey, now that's a technique. They can't ever arrest you for that. They'll never get the evidence on that. Well, patience. Oh, that's hard for me. Unconditional love. That means when that person isn't doing all the things you like, you still love them. And here's the one that really kind of got me. Love doesn't take into account wrongs suffered. Love doesn't take into account wrongs suffered. You know what that means? Love doesn't keep score. And we all do that, don't we? Have you ever said to your mate, listen, how long have we been fighting about this? How many years have I asked you to quit doing this? And in our mind, we're thinking 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. What happens? We're keeping score. You know what? I'm not going to apologize this time, because I always apologize. I apologized last time. I apologized for the last 30 times. I'm not going to do it anymore. It's your turn to do it. We tend to keep score, don't we? He says love doesn't do that. So if we want to be men of courage, integrity, and stand for right, which is what we admire, isn't it? As guys, we admire that. We admire watching that TV or that movie hero who stands against the odds. He's the only one. He goes out to meet the bad guy, and the odds are outnumbered, and he's going to stand for the right thing. We admire that, but we just find it hard to do. So one of the first things, ladies, to remember is this. Men will do anything and everything for respect. Men will do anything and everything for respect. And I guarantee you that the things that most women are trying to get men in their life to do, they're not approaching it from the respect point of view, and it doesn't work. Because men will do anything and everything for respect. They'll die for it. Well, here's the second thing. What's important about respect is linked to spiritual authority. Look here at Ephesians 5 again. Notice the linkage. It says to wives in Ephesians 5, he says, so wives, be subject to them as to the Lord. And then in the other verse 33, it says respect the husband. So notice he links in these two verses, saying basically the same thing to the women. He links being subject to respect. There's a linkage between spiritual authority and respect. Subject to is about rank. It's not about, men are better, men are different. They're different. And we live in a culture today that doesn't want to recognize that difference. But, men are different. They're different physically. Their brain works, different. And, men aren't good at everything. I mean, we're different. Men are no good at having babies. Amen? Because you got to have pain when you have babies. And when it comes to pain, men are babies. When I had my knee surgery, my wife, she doesn't want to ever get put to sleep. She says, just give me a bullet, I'll bite on it and go ahead and carve away. Or give me something. It's like, I'm not like that. It's like, oh, you can shoot me something, it'll make me fuzzy? Oh, good. And I get to go to sleep too? All right, fine, give me that. I don't want all that pain stuff. And I've watched our kids being born. I'm glad I'm not a woman. God made us different because we have different roles. We have different things to do. So it's the idea here. It's like the military. It's military chain of command. When you're in the military, you salute someone of a higher rank. It's the lower rank that salutes the higher rank, and then the higher rank returns the salute. Now, what is really going on here? I mean, think about that. I mean, when we walk by each other in normal life, we don't salute each other. You say, oh, okay, you're the pastor, I need to salute you because you have this rank in church. Or, oh, you're my boss. I mean, you go to work and say, oh, I salute my boss. We don't do that, but in the military, everything is based on chain of command. It's an absolute essential. You cannot operate a successful military without building in the idea of chain of command and responding to that. So you start right in teaching the culture. The lower rank will acknowledge and initiate the salute to the higher rank, and the higher rank will return it. It doesn't matter if the higher rank is a jerk. It doesn't matter if the higher rank is stupid. It doesn't matter if the higher rank, is whatever. It's about the position. And it's building that chain of command. And so a husband and wife in Ephesians 5 are both commanded to be subject to Christ. It's about spiritual authority. Now looking down at Ephesians chapter 6, because this is a concept that God is trying to build into the life of every human being, and he starts it on the very basic level at the home. Look at Ephesians chapter 6. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. So now, notice what he says here. After in Ephesians 5, he talks about husbands and wives. He gives them their job description based around the basic need. What's the basic need of a woman? Love. Why is she like that? Because God made her like that. It's on purpose. It's by design. What's the basic need of a man? Respect. God designed him by that. And so then he says, now, husband and wife together, here's what you need to do with your kids. Teach them to obey you and to honor you. Honor that position of parenthood. Because for a child, when the child is born, the very first position of spiritual authority in their life is mom and dad, is parents. So when you go to Exodus chapter 20, where the 10 Commandments are given, the first 4 commandments deal with man's relationship with God. So the first 4 commandments are all about my relationship with God, how he's supposed to be number one, and I observe the Sabbath, I don't create any false gods. Now, commandments 5 to 10 are about man's relationship with man. And so the very first one of those, the 5th commandment, is honor your mother and father. Isn't that interesting? The very first theology that God intends for human beings to learn and be learned in the home is to obey mom and dad. Honor that position. Why? Because learning to obey spiritual authority starts with learning to obey parents. That's how they learn to obey God. And so God starts there to lay the foundation. It's honoring the position. And that's what David did. Remember when David was being chased around by King Saul unjustly? Saul was a crazy guy who wanted to kill him. And David had the opportunity to kill Saul. He was hiding out in the cave, and Saul came in there, and David could have killed him. And he says, no, I'm not going to do it. Because he's the king. He wasn't focused on the person and whether the person was right or wrong. He was focused on the position. He said, God put him there, and it's up to God to take him off. I'm going to honor that position. David had learned the concept of spiritual authority, and in honoring that, God eventually honored him. And so when a child learns to respect parents, to obey parents, to honor that position, that is key to them learning to respect and honoring God. Now, in our culture today, we have lost the ability to respect and honor. So all you do is you look at our homes, you look at how kids behave, you look at our schools. Schools are like war zones. You look at marriages. We don't, there's no respect and honor of one position to another position. And so if you and I, as a country, if we're going to return to God, if we're going to reclaim the nation, the solution will never be found in Washington. It won't be found with the billions and billions of dollars we spend. It's going to have to start in the home. It's going to have to start in the marriages and in the families of understanding what it means to respect and to honor. Matter of fact, this principle was so important in the Old Testament that if parents had a child that was totally out of control, they couldn't do anything with this child, just rebellious, wouldn't listen at all, then they would bring that child out and the community would stone him, put him to death. You say, well, that's pretty drastic. Yeah, so if it's that drastic, it must be an important principle. Because God knew where it would lead to. God knew that the consequences of that permeating through the years of society and culture. And you see, we look around our culture today and we look at all of the issues and problems and things that go on in our culture. But really, they all go back to violation of spiritual principles. And that's where the solution comes into things. And so it's about the rank, it's about the position. Now, you and I as men, the thing we need to keep in mind, that the weakest position of leadership is rank. When you say to your wife, listen, you need to obey me because I'm your husband. You need to obey me because I'm your parent. Just shut up, close your mouth. You need to be doing what I tell you to do because I'm your parent. That's a very weak position. And it really won't accomplish very much. It'll just build resentment in your mate. It'll build resentment in the kids, and they will not respect you. True respect cannot be commanded. You cannot command somebody to respect you, to honor you, to follow you. It has to be willingly given from a heart that loves and respects. This is the kind of, in the military, that is the kind of loyalty and respect that causes a follower to go into combat and to follow their leader even unto death. That is what was in the hearts of Christ followers. They would follow Jesus to death. Not because they were commanded to, but because they loved him, because they respected him. He had earned that and that position in their heart. And that's critical for you and I to understand. Now, here's one of the most important things on the message today, and that's this. How do you show respect then? So, ladies, if you understand that with men, it's all about respect. It's everything. Then how do I show respect to my husband? How do I show respect to my sons as they grow and they get older? How do I show respect to any men in life? Well, the role of parents is to train their sons on how to earn the respect of others. Let me say that again. One of the major roles of parents is to train their sons on how to earn the respect of others. Why? Because that's the greatest need in their life, is respect. If they don't know how to become men of respect, if they don't know how to earn that respect, there's all sorts of devastating consequences in their life. And what do I mean, earn the respect of others? Well, you start by, number one, teaching them to love God with all their heart. That's what Deuteronomy says. And so they become genuine. They learn that I'm going to love God with all of my heart. Kids have a built-in thing where they can just tell phonies and spot phonies. So for kids, it doesn't take very long. They don't be very old to say, my dad's a phony. He tells me one thing and does another. He tells me to do this, but he does the opposite. He tells me not to do that, but he doesn't. And so they pick right up on it. Kids aren't stupid. We think somehow that kids are stupid. We can snow them. But no, they see the real us. They live with us. So If you want your kids to respect you or your wife to respect you, you have to be consistent. You do what you say. And so when it comes to God, as parents, we have to love God and teach our kids how to love God. Secondly, as a parent, we have to train their character. That's one of the most critical things that will make them successful in life. We have to recognize their character, the strengths and the weaknesses. A lot of parents, they don't even know their kids. They don't know what is the personality of my child, what is the character of my child, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. And so then in training them, I have to help minimize their weaknesses, because that's where I'm going to prepare them for life responsibilities. So when it comes to men, what are they designed for? What are their major life responsibilities? Providers, protectors, problem solvers. That's what men kind of do by nature. And here's a couple realities. Number one, the world is a very hard and competitive place. Amen? It is a very hard and competitive place. And now, you don't just compete locally, you compete globally. So when it comes to work and finances and everything else, you're going to be competing on a global basis. Every man knows this. Every man knows that other men compare and compete with him. We learned that in middle school in gym class. When you're standing in the shower room and people are comparing with each other. You shaved yet? You very hairy yet? And that's why they don't want to take gym class. Because they learned early on, hey, on the ball field, in the classroom, you're going to get compared, you're going to have to compete with. So what have we done in our culture today? We've tried to just wipe that all out. Oh, we're not going to talk about grades. We don't want you to flunk. That's going to give you a negative self-esteem. We're not going to keep score, because that would be bad for you. So what do? We just totally deny the reality of life. That when guys get out of school and start to engage in the real world, we've kind of pampered them, feminized them, and they think somehow the playing field is supposed to be level and it's supposed to be the same for everybody, and it's not that way. And when they get out, they're not prepared for real life. They think that somehow things should be just handed to them. And they don't understand that, no, the world is a hard and competitive place. And so the other thing for parent is nurturing comes in. As I nurture my son, is to help him develop a correct and healthy self-image, to see and feel about himself the way God does. Now, when parents do not properly prepare their sons for life, they steal a man's respect. When we do not prepare our sons for life, we're going to steal, because this lack of life preparation will steal their respect because of fear. Because an unprepared man will become overwhelmed by the fear of failing in life responsibilities. And this is how it shows up. We have today, you've heard that term, failure to launch. We have today a delayed adolescence. It used to be, kids would finish up, they get out of high school, maybe go to college, boom, out in the world. And now, they come back home, and they're still in their 30s trying to find themselves, figure out who they are, what they want to do. And so an unprepared man, when it comes to life responsibilities, the job, getting a job, keeping a job, succeeding on the job, a job that I can move forward in, that I can make a decent living in, that's going to have some pressure. It's going to have competition to it. It's going to have responsibilities to it. Marriage, hey, listen, two can't live as cheap as one, unless one doesn't eat. Amen? So marriage, it's not just about you. Now you've got this female, and you don't understand her mind. And she's got needs, and she's got things that mystify you. And so she needs time and attention. And so taking care of a marriage, parenting, little kids come along, and they're just little money pits, right? Their mouths are open, their hands are out. Feed me, clothe me, give me time, take care of me. It's all about me. And taking care of, and then the adult world, all the other responsibilities with being an adult in the adult world. That carefree child life, teen life, single life, it's gone. And what happens to a lot of guys when they're not properly prepared for life? They become overwhelmed by all of these responsibilities and say, I can't do it. And when fear comes into your life, there's one or two responsibilities. Fight or flee. And so when man becomes overwhelmed, what's the fight? Anger. He starts to get angry. He gets conflict in his relationships because he's blaming other people. He's blaming other people for all this fear. You know, it's your fault, you know, and I never did want to marry you, and I didn't want to be, have kids, and I didn't want this, and I didn't want that, and my boss is a jerk, and, but what's that all about? It's all fear-driven. And then depression sets in. Because for a man, it's all about what? Respect. So if I feel like I'm going to be a failure, I won't be depressed about that. So you have, that's the one response, the fight, the anger. The other is the flee. And the fight sometimes leads to the flee. The flight, the flee, where am I going to go? I'm going to run away. I'm going to go to where I feel safe. And so I regress to earlier stages of life. I run away. Hey, this is the adult world over here, and these are all its responsibilities, and I can't handle those. I'm not prepared for those. So I'm going to run away from all of those things. Where am I going to run? I'm going to run to early stages of life when I didn't have all that responsibility, when life was simpler. Maybe you want to run back to your single life. You know, I'll get a divorce. Or I'll run back. What's running back to single life? Well, a lot of times I'm going to run back here where it's safe, and I had certain enablers to handle all these things for me because they didn't properly prepare me. That could be mom. That could be dad who didn't teach me to make decisions, who didn't teach me to follow through, didn't teach me how to make good decisions, who just took care of everything for me. Could be another woman who's willing to temporarily do that. And you say, oh, this guy's wonderful, man. You know, she thinks I'm the greatest things in sliced bread. She just takes care of everything for me. Yeah, and then once you get divorced and you marry her and real life starts, let's see what changes about that. And she starts to wonder, hey, you left your wife and fooled around and came to me, and now I'm wondering if you'll do the same thing to me. So now she starts to nag you, and she starts to look after you, and she's like, where are you going? You really going there? And you're like, whoa, what's happened here? And so you go where you have less responsibilities. Or distractions. I got to get distracted by all this stuff. So that's where alcohol comes in, drugs come in, recreation. I'll go back and I'll play. I don't think there's anything wrong with guys, doing recreational things. I like to do recreational things. But it's got to be balanced. If you're in your 30s or 40s, and you got a job, you got a wife, you got kids, it's not like you're single. It's not like you're a teenager. I can just sign up and be gone 3 nights a week, playing on the football team, the softball team, this team, that team, the other team. It's like you're in a new life stage now. But that's all about running away. I'll take jobs with little responsibility. Jobs I feel safe. Jobs I can't fail in, but I also can't make very much money there. And so, but if I go to that, there'll be more pressure on me. And then you kind of, the fleeing, you end up in a wrong crowd. You end up where you find acceptance because you don't feel prepared for this crowd. This crowd over here is moving on, moving forward. They're more successful, but they're more competitive. There's more responsibilities. I don't want to get there because I don't feel like I measure up. I feel like I'll fail. So let me go over here with others who really don't have much drive, much initiative. They're not trying to make much of their life, and we all commiserate together. We all talk about how unfair the world is. And how unfair those who have things are. And we can kind of commiserate because we all share the same fears together. And what happens to you as a wife if you've got a guy like that? You don't respect him. Why? Because they're not worthy of respect. And he can tell you don't respect him. And now you've got a negative cycle going. You say, so what do I do with somebody like that? Oh, that's a toughie. He's not worthy of respect. And this is where most women make the mistake. Because they continue to disrespect him. And that doesn't work. You say, well, but I can't respect him. He's not worthy of respect. He needs to change. He's not meeting any of my needs. This is where the power of a good and wise woman comes in. Because you're going to have to operate counterintuitively. So what do I do when I have in my life a son, a husband, somebody is not worthy of respect? You call it out of him. That is the only and best opportunity. You have to call it out because for a man it's all about what? Respect. You call it out knowing that his greatest need is respect, knowing that he doesn't really even respect himself. You don't mother him. You don't nag him. You don't try to handle it for him. You don't jump in and fill the gap and say, well, okay, I'll do this. I'll take these things over that you should be doing. And now you take a bunch of added responsibilities on you. He'll never get it that way. You'll just get more resentful because you'll be doing more and more and he'll be doing less because that's exactly what he feels he wants and needs. Somebody, because I don't feel like I can do that. So, that's what moms do. And you don't want to be a mom. You'll be resentful. I didn't marry you. I mean, how many women say, yeah, I've got like just another child now. I see my husband as another child. That's pretty disrespectful. And you're going to get resentful, and he's going to get resentful. And you can't redo the parent's job. Now, maybe you didn't see the reality of who he was. Or you wouldn't listen to others who saw that reality and you married him. But why did you marry him? Because you saw something you thought was there. So you're going to call it out of him by reminding him why you married him. I married you because you were my hero. You were my hero. I saw this in you. I believed this about you. I believed in you. And you recast the vision of what you saw in him, who he can be. And you let him know, listen, I'm going to be there by your side, that when you come home from the battle, I'm going to help heal those wounds. All most men need really is just one person, particularly one woman, to believe in them. To really believe in them and stand by them and call the best out of them. And when a man feels like that, he'll slay dragons. That's why most men have affairs. They have affairs not because the other woman is more beautiful or smarter or anything else, but in a lot of cases because what is missing in their life is respect. Some cases because the wife is disrespecting him. In some cases it's just because he's disrespecting himself. Now, I can't guarantee that a certain plan will work. You say, but you don't know my husband, man. He's a drug addict. He's a drunkard. He's a thief. He's this, he's that. People have free will. And I'm not saying that this is a guarantee to make it work. But you have to ask yourself, is my way working? Respect is what resonates in the core of a man. It calls him to something higher. And if that doesn't work, and trying to call out him the respect, if that doesn't work, then nothing else will work apart from the supernatural move of God in his life.